Hello and welcome to Neuroshambles, the podcast that aims to shine a light into some of the murkier corners of what it's like to parent neurodivergent kids. I'm Mark Allen, and every episode I'm going to be swapping stories with my guests about some of the frankly ludicrous nonsense we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, if you're anything like me and you're feeling frazzled, overwhelmed and pretty much an outcast from polite society, join me. Hello and welcome to episode 16 of Neuroshambles. As ever, it's an absolute treat to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. Not just those of you who are listening in the UK, but I looked at my podcast download statistics recently, and we've got people from literally all over the world. It's absolutely staggering. So I'd also want to just give a special mention to people from the USA, Ireland, Canada, Netherlands, Australia, Germany, Isle of Man, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Denmark, Spain, Japan, Morocco, Romania, United Arab Emirates, Switzerland, Belgium, Finland, Greece, New Zealand, Poland, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, and Ukraine. You guys, I mean, you're already dealing with enough shit without having to listen to mine. So, I mean, thank you. Genuinely. It only goes to show that the kind of type of issues that we're dealing with are literally global, and it's amazing that this is kind of spread that far, but I appreciate every single one of the listens, so thank you very much. Anyway, we've got another great show lined up for you where I'm going to be meeting a new guest. We've got another topic of the week, and we've got some more neurodiversity champions, some tiny epic wins, and of course some what the flip moments. So what am I waiting for? Let's go.
Meet the guest.
So I am delighted to be able to welcome onto Neuroshambles. It is Lauren Palfrey. Hi, Lauren. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for coming aboard. Now, obviously, as we do for every Neuroshambles, it's important to understand a little bit about your setup. I actually do need to kind of divulge something to the listeners as well, because they might be familiar with you if they followed anything else on the social media or anything. So, full disclosure, Lauren is the mother of Max. Max is the inventing genius that came up with the fidget tee from Comfort Clothing, which we covered on episode 12, I think, with Steph Curtis, the struggles with clothing episode. And we got in touch after that, and you wanted to come on the show. So that's fantastic. Welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about Max.
So, yeah, Max is 11. He was diagnosed as autistic when he was 5.
Right, okay.
With PDA as well. And then later on ADHD.
Okay.
Sensory processing issues as well. Had mobility. And he designed this T-shirt, and it's incredible, really. It's just came up with the idea, and it's
amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I can't imagine the kind of thing that Jay would invent if I gave him free rein. I might ask him actually and
you never know.
See what he comes up with.
Yeah.
So who else have you got there apart from Max? Obviously, who else are you dealing with there?
We have Ben, who is 9, and he's waiting for an assessment for autism and ADHD.
Okay, is it similar sort of similar signs to Max at that age?
No, very different.
Okay.
Signs. So it's kind of, we're kind of navigating that and trying to think, what signs are different, what aren't.
It's strange, isn't it? Because it's very much like that with Jay and Otto, where Jay, it was like, okay, we know what autism looks like, and then Otto was just like, this is completely different, but also fully autistic, and just trying to work out what flavour of autism you've got in your house. Okay, but you think that Ben is autistic?
Yeah, and it's any day now, his assessment. Really, it's like at the beginning of May, so we're quite nervous about it and apprehensive. But yeah, it's very, very soon.
Is that an initial assessment?
Yes, his first assessment, yeah.
What I haven't actually discussed on the podcast yet is that India went for her first assessment on last Monday. And she's it's so obvious. I didn't go. Tam went and told me, like, it was like she was trying to be autistic. It was like... because obviously we see her at home. So she's comfortable at home and she's safe at home. So we just see her personality and her character, But she went into the assessment, and apparently they asked her name, and she just sort of shrugged and walked off, which is so unlike her at home.
Yeah, yeah,
And she wouldn't look at them, and she wouldn't answer any questions, and it was like, yeah. So Tam was just like, yeah, we're pretty sure that she's going to go through to the next stage,
yeah.
which I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, yeah, you don't it's to begin with, and then it's kind of, it's there, isn't it? And
It
you
is
go
what it
through it.
is, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Once you got one, you might as well open the floodgates, right?
Yeah,
So you've
exactly.
got Max and you've got Ben. Who else have you got there?
We've got Sam, who
Okay,
is 6 months old, so he's very,
six
very
six
tiny and
months.
new.
Oh my
Yeah,
word!
so we have no idea whether he is.
Oh, let's just assume not for now and see how you get on.
Well, me and Matt are ADHD, and I've
Okay,
last September I was diagnosed autistic too, so
okay.
it wouldn't surprise me. But who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
he might be he might sail through without any of that, and
Yeah,
he'll be the token neurotypical in his household, like I am in my household.
yeah,
You never know. But there's a lot going on at your end by the sounds of it.
yeah,
But you all seem pretty, you're thriving by the looks of it. You're really kind of
yeah.
embracing it and thriving it. And it's
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard. It's
of
it's,
course,
it's
yeah.
tough. But we roll with it. We go with
Yeah, you
it.
find your way, don't you? Go, this is us.
Yeah,
We'll just crack on with it. So yeah, I'm
exactly.
glad to hear it. Well, welcome aboard. Let's crack on with the topic of the week.
What's the topic of the week?
So, as always on Neuroshambles, I like to take a deep dive into something that in a neurotypical household is relatively manageable, but which in our neuroshambolic houses can be a bit more problematic. So, this episode, I really wanted to focus on the topic of noise. It's sensitivity to sound, I guess, because a lot of neurodivergent kids are highly attuned to sensory inputs, whether that's being sensitive to light or taste or smell or the feel of things. But very often, I think the most keenly felt sensitivity is sensitivity to sound or noise. Certainly with my kids, their reactions to noise can be really acute, and it leads to them becoming more dysregulated, and very often without them even realizing it. So I mean, kind of, I spoke to you sort of a little bit before this, Lauren, and I think you've got a similar thing going on in your house in terms of sensitivity to noise.
Absolutely. It's very difficult. Ben in particular struggles with loud noises. I
Okay.
do too.
Hmm.
Um, but Max, on the other hand, likes to be loud. And obviously we have baby Sam, who is, super loud,
Oh God.
um, with his crying and everything. So yeah, and then we have Matt, who has hearing difficulties as well. So he has hearing aids. So he has to have his hearing aids up and down
Right, my God, that must be a
occasionally.
nightmare going up and down all the time with that.
Yeah,
Oh, wowzers! So there's a lot. It's a melting
yeah,
pot in your household then. So,
yeah,
um, because I think sensitivity to noise, to loud noises, was the first thing that I kind of noticed in my kids as
yes,
being one of the first signs of autism with them,
yeah.
and it was things like hand dryers was weirdly
I
the
was just
first
gonna say,
one. It was
yeah,
in a
hand
bathroom.
dryers exactly the same. Like you'd go into the toilet and hand dryers. You'd put them on and massive screaming.
Yes.
Even now with baby Sam, like we take him to the toilet and the hand dryer, and he starts to cry, and you think, oh gosh,
I remember when I grew up, hand dryers used to be rubbish. They were just like really
yeah,
calm, gentle. It's like a cow breathing on your hands, right? Uh,
yeah.
but
But now,
now they're like
woo!
jet powered, and they're
Yeah,
really noisy and they're really
yeah,
jarring. So obviously for our neuro exceptional kids, it is like it's
trigger,
really
massive
triggering.
trigger. Yeah,
And I noticed when they were little that really set them off, and they would both Otto and Jay would put their hands straight over their ears, and they'd
straight
panic and
over.
they'd run out of the bathroom. And you might, I mean, I might be having a wee there, and then one of my kids runs out of the bathroom. I'm like, like, what's my priority? No, yeah, just not wee on
Yeah,
myself is the main priority.
yeah,
So that was a very early sign for me, and also lorries on main roads. Sometimes you get lorries that
yeah.
are super
Yeah,
noisy. So
go
again, yeah,
cover their ears
but
straight away. Yeah,
straight away the
absolutely.
hands would go up, and it's like,
Yeah,
and I think probably at first I thought it was quite cute and quite funny. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, a little
Yeah.
kid who's in the big adult world, he's a bit scared. That's nice. I can
Yeah.
protect him. And then you realize over time, I think what I certainly did was that this isn't normal, because I'm like,
Yeah.
there are other kids in this bathroom who are not running out the door because the
Mm.
hand dryer's gone off, or there aren't kids sort of walking by the road covering their ears because of the loud noises. Did you kind of have that
Yeah.
sense as well? Was that quite early?
It was quite early on, Max particularly very early on, around sort of, I don't know, maybe a year and a
Okay.
half, something like that. I'd start to think, well, you know, all his little baby friends aren't doing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is this okay? What's going on? And then we had Ben, and Ben would cry a little bit, and he would cover his ears a little bit with that, and I think, yeah, what's going on here? Is it just because baby's loud? And then we just, yeah, we thought, something else, is going on here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So my kids react in slightly different ways, because I think, an excess of noise triggers the fight or flight response
Yes.
typically. So Jay would be the one that he would fight, as in he'd tell you to shut up. He'll try
Yeah.
and control the noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Otto is very flight. He will burst into tears, or he'll just be very
Yeah.
upset, visibly upset about it. Do you have a similar sort of reaction with your?
Yeah. So Max is very much, he's PDA, so he's very much controls the noise,
Mhm.
and puts headphones on, and
Okay.
um, is loud himself. And Ben very much is like Otto, in that, runs away and puts
Mhm.
headphones on, and doesn't want to. He isn't very loud. He's not a very loud child either. He likes to be sort of quieter.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very they're very different.
Yeah. Another of the early signs I had, I don't know if you had this at all, was fireworks night. That was like, I
Yes.
got so excited to take my
Yeah.
kids to bonfire night when they were
Yeah.
little. I was like, oh, I get to they're gonna look up at the sky and they'll see these amazing bright colours, and and they'll be on my shoulders and they'll be really excited by it, because it's for kids, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Um and they'll have a toffee apple and all of that stuff. The stuff I remember when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
we went to a very low key fireworks night. It was just like for nursery. So we're not talking massive explosions, you're not talking huge fireworks. It was relatively low key, but they were both in tears immediately.
Oh no.
And it was so sad, because I was like, but I want this
Yeah.
to be a thing. I want you to enjoy it like I'm enjoying it. And we just
Exactly.
had to get out of there.
We had similar in yeah, and it was mainly with Max, who, um, in the beginning we didn't take him to any fireworks, because
Right.
we realised that loud noises were an issue, and we would
Hmm.
watch fireworks from afar, so
Okay.
like
Yeah.
really far away. So like they'd be like in the street or whatever, and you'd be a bit further away, and you wouldn't hear the big
Hmm.
bang. And then when Ben was born, we waited until Ben was probably about 2, I think. And then
Okay.
we all went and we bought ear defenders, and they loved it. They absolutely loved
Okay.
it. And I was like, wow, okay, so ear defenders are a good thing.
Yes,
Let's
definitely.
let's do that. And during COVID, actually, we went to an in-car firework display, and we find it's the noise, that because Max didn't want to wear his ear defenders on that occasion, and he found that the
Yeah.
noise actually was more helpful to him at that point. He quite liked the noise.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like you like it, but you're overstimulated by it afterwards, so you need to regulate it
Yeah,
as well.
okay. That's interesting, because Jay had that. Yeah, Jay has that now, whereas he likes the noise.
Yeah,
I mean, he wants to get involved. I think Jay just likes the chaos. He's just made something explode. He wants that impact in the world.
yeah,
Whereas Otto, again, I think is similar. That he likes it, but he has to keep running inside afterwards. So he wants to
yeah,
go out and see it and hear the noise, but then he's kind of freaked out by it, so he goes back inside.
yeah,
With Jay, the big success we had was was giving him a role in the lighting of the fireworks. I'm obviously not going to let him light the
yeah.
fireworks, um, but he's quite into Greek mythology.
Ah,
So well, one thing that me and Tam used to do was make him be cupbearer. So if we needed a drink, we'd go cupbearer, and he'd love it because it's like a big Greek mythology thing. It's like an honor to be a
Yes.
cupbearer. So
Yes.
he'd run off to the kitchen and go,
Oh.
"Has a drink," which is really nice. And I needed him involved in the firework night for it to be a success. So I made him the torchbearer, and he had the little lit spill that you light the fuses with. So
Yeah.
he'd like run in and give me that, and he had a roll, so he loved it. So this year was the most successful again because I think I think they might have got over the noise issue now.
Yes.
Or it's at least more manageable than it used to be. Now, one of the issues with noise and their reaction to sound is not just the volume of it, I think, but the fact that there's so many competing noises in a lot of ways. If they're in a busy environment, it's not the kind of the overall volume, it's the competing sounds that their brain is trying to sort of keep a track of. I don't know, if you have that?
It's when you're in a busy shopping centre, it's like people talking, or it's the music, or the loud things, or people walking, even like high heels are loud, anything, and they just absorb. I do as well, like absorb all the noise, and then you just feel overstimulated afterwards, and you all need to regulate afterwards. Like our car on the way home is like, oh, everyone's trying to like regulate, and it's an interesting experience.
How do you regulate? I'm just interested. How do you regulate in the car? What do you all have your own things going on?
My husband will like turn his hearing aids down. Not that
Okay,
I'll know about it, but he'll turn it down, and he'll like drum his fingers.
Okay.
Max will put his headphones on with his tablet.
Yeah.
Ben will do similar or wear his ear defenders.
Uh-huh.
Sam will be Sam. I don't know. And I'll probably just scroll on my phone, and I probably shouldn't do that, but I'll probably just
Why?
scroll on
No,
my
you
phone.
do whatever you need to
Yeah.
what you need to do, Lauren, to regulate. I mean,
Exactly.
because shopping centre. I mean, you mentioned shopping centres. That would be my worst nightmare with my lot. And I think partly because of the noise. I think that may well be why they're so triggered, because they definitely are at shopping centres. There's a lot going on, and like you say, that it's all of that kind of contrasting noise. So as a neurotypical, I feel like I can represent the neurotypicals here.
Yeah.
All of that noise goes in, but we can filter it out, right? I think, I understand this background noise. I can hear people talking over there, but I know it's not really relating to me. So I can tune it out. Or conversely, it might be an interesting thing, so I can zone in on it. But my bit of eavesdropping, that never hurt anyone.
I like doing that.
But crucially, I can kind of zone in and out of different things, and I can filter out different things. Whereas I think that's much more of a difficult thing to do with some neurodivergent brain. And I think that's why Jay has such a hard time at school, because classrooms are noisy. When I was at school, certainly, but I went into a school recently to India's school trip, and you go into the classroom first, and it was absolute mayhem. It's so noisy,
so loud. I mean, it's one of the many reasons why we homeschool both boys.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when Max was at school and when Ben was at school, it was really loud, like Christmas plays and assemblies and getting in and out of school every day, like putting your coat up, hanging it up. It's just so the bell, all that stuff, so loud, and so much absorbing. I think that's why he would struggle and have meltdowns when he got home,
right? Because he's trying to just deal with it all during the day.
Mask it all and keep it all in, and then get home and then have this big explosion, like a Coke bottle.
Absolutely. Jay definitely gets he gets really frustrated by people talking if it's not the teacher. Because, kids do at school, you kind of mess about, right? And you have a little chat, and you have a little in-jokes and stuff. But he can't zone that out. He's super focused on that. Then he gets furious about it. And there's not only just sort of like because he's dysregulated, and not only because he responds to dysregulation with his fight response, not physically, but certainly verbally, but also there's that sense of injustice as well.
it's the rules as well, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
kind of, it's the rules we
absolutely.
don't speak. So we have to stick to those rules, but you're breaking the rule, and someone should be
Yeah.
doing something about this. Yeah,
Yeah, so he'll come home and I'll be like, how is school? Well, I don't. I try not to ask that. He'll come home with like a really grumpy face on, so I'll know exactly how school
that's cool.
was. And
Yeah.
then he'll go like, "Oh, they were just talking so much today. I had to tell them off." It's like,
Oh,
oh God, I can't imagine just like him turning around and telling off his peers. I can't imagine how
yeah.
that's going to go down with them. Particularly if there's a supply teacher, because supply teachers don't have any control, and
No,
Jay
they don't.
is like trying to listen to the supply teacher and trying to get everyone on board, and it's just not going down well, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
He gets so annoyed when he comes back, and I get it, it's so distracting for him, and
Yeah.
it's hard for him to focus in the first place with everything else going on without that. So yeah, I mean, it's no wonder. One of the coping mechanisms, certainly Jay has, with dealing with noise, whether that's loud noises or kind of a combination of noises, is he's got this amazing ability to tune everything out. Like he'll just go into this like tunnel where
Yeah.
nothing will permeate that. Even if I'm standing next to him calling his name, he will
Yeah.
just be totally tunnel
Zoned out.
vision. It's really interesting. Do you have that with your two?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really good at being able to zone out.
Okay.
Even when as a child, I would zone out. But yeah, Max and Ben can do that. Particularly Ben. He will zone out, and you'll have to literally go up to him and touch him and say, "Ben, I'm talking to you. This, that, or the other, whatever I'm asking him to do."
Yes, 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 yes.
You have to kind of talk to him and touch him and say, "Yeah, this is what's happening." Um, yeah, it's really fascinating
It
that you
is,
can
isn't
just
it?
zone. Yeah,
I had a teacher, one of Jay's teachers once said, Jay's not listening to me. I call his name and he totally ignores me. I was like, oh, you're
yeah,
going about it the wrong way. I was like, don't talk to him. Just tap him on the shoulder. He'll be with you straight away.
yeah,
Like he'll get it.
yeah.
He's not being defiant. He's just like he needs
Zoned
to.
out.
That's how he regulates. He's gonna have
Yeah,
to like cut everything out when they're doing
yeah,
reading or whatever, because it's usually when he's reading, because he can just hyper focus on that, and that really
yeah.
works for him. But when he was little, when he was like 4 or 5 and he used to do it and I'd call his name and he completely ignored us, I genuinely thought he was deaf.
Yeah, we had hearing tests. We were like, we need to get their hearing checked to make
Exactly.
sure that they can hear us and they're okay. With Matt having his like hearing
Of
difficulties as well,
course, yes,
we were like,
yes.
is there some sort of hearing problem? But they were fine. It's all just disassociating,
Yes.
zoning out.
But you don't realize that at the time, right?
No,
Because, I
yeah,
don't know if you're like we were, but neurodivergency wasn't a thing we really considered or really
yeah,
understood at that point. So it's not like, you
no,
don't go, he's not listening. So, oh, first thing I'll check is whether he's
yeah,
autistic.
yeah, exactly. You wouldn't jump to that conclusion. I don't
No.
think you'd go with deaf.
We did a similar thing. We took him for hearing tests,
Yeah.
but he didn't pass those hearing tests. Don't know why. I mean, I don't know if he was fucking about or whatever. So they put grommets in his ears. Have
Oh
you
god.
so which
Yeah,
is a
that was
pretty
sensory as well. Like,
yeah, it's an invasive thing as well. They had to like,
yeah,
he's got like a proper operation.
yeah.
And we're like, well, at least he'll listen to us now, obviously. And he came round and then no, same again. Exactly the same. Nothing changed at all. So like, oh well, back to the drawing board. And obviously, now we know he's autistic. We know that's what it was. But I mean, he could definitely have passed that hearing test if he'd have been paying attention. I don't know what he was doing.
Similar with Ben, like we went in. They were like, "Oh, his left ear's not quite responding." He was just zoning out at that point. He was just because he was so overstimulated
Yeah, yeah,
by
yeah, yeah.
the test,
Oh God.
that that he was just like, "Oh, I can't cope with this," and just zoned out. And they thought he just couldn't. He couldn't. And also, I don't know if you with tests and things like
Hmm.
hearing tests and eye tests and things, children tend to find that really hard
Yeah,
because it's like a test, and therefore it puts pressure on them and makes them feel like, oh god, I've got to pass this
yeah,
test
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. I think that played a big role in it as well.
Oh, so the test itself was the
Yeah,
problem. He's
yeah,
like a absolutely perfect hearing until he gets tested for it, and then he's
yeah.
all over the place. Yeah, but in a way, that hyper focus it's a great coping strategy,
Yeah,
isn't it? I can't
it is.
imagine, without the ability to do that. You say you can do that as well. I mean, that must
I can
be.
do that, and I did it as a kid, and it obviously wasn't spotted as a kid. But yeah, I used to after school. I used to just sit in front of the TV and zone out, and my parents would be like, "Lauren, Lauren," and they'd have to walk to me and touch me and be like, whatever, what's going on or whatever. But yeah, and I can do it now, and zone out. And
But they obviously didn't know, right?
no, they didn't know at the time. Like in the 80s and things like that, they wouldn't. They don't clue, did they? Like
Well, it's a new fad, isn't it? Autism. It's a new thing. Didn't exist in the 80s, apparently.
apparently.
um, just a disclaimer for anyone listening that thinks I genuinely believe that. I don't genuinely believe that. Just to be clear, I know it. Yeah, it's been around for a long time. It's only now we're paying it the proper attention it deserves. So, as I kind of mentioned previously, my kids have different tolerances for noise levels in our house. So Jay needs it to be kind of quiet. And Otto sounds like he's a bit like Max in that he loves a bit of noise. He loves making noise. It's
Yeah,
it's insane. He drums a lot. I think I might have mentioned this on a previous episode. He regulates by drumming on tables or drumming on his knees or stamping or bouncing a ball. Just fucking noise. Just
yes,
making lots of
right.
noise. That's how he gets on. Is that
Yeah.
what Max is doing?
Max is like that on an evening when he's playing with his friends. In particular, he's very loud. He makes amazing noises that I have never heard of in my entire life. And I'm like, how did you make that noise? He's able to just create noises. And yeah, and it's loud. It's fantastic, when you want to listen to it, but when it's like Ben struggles with that, he
Yeah, but
struggles
that's
with
mhm.
it, and I do as well, and it's hard. It can be so loud, and so you
Yeah,
just have to kind of separate yourself and be like, okay, you need to do that, which is fine, but I need to do this for
it's
myself, and I need to protect myself right now. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, I'm going to have a meltdown, or Ben's going to have a meltdown, and you have to just protect, and
Yeah, that's the constant juggle that you have to do
yeah,
because
yeah,
obviously Otto's drumming really triggers Jay, and Jay, as we've previously mentioned, will go for the fight response. So he will try and shut him down, and he'll shout at him, and it's heartbreaking for Otto because he needs that. He's regulating, So we have to
yeah,
somehow sort of work it out and say, well, look, you're going to have to go into your room and do it. So he'll go and get some books and do it in his room, but Jay still hears it.
yeah.
He's got incredible hearing when he needs to.
I'm like that. I've got really, really, really. I think because I'm misophonia.
Hmm.
I really struggle. I can hear electricity.
Okay.
Is
Wow.
that like intense for me? And I can hear snoring. I can hear over like the other side of the house and all that stuff. I can hear drumming fingers and everything. It drives me absolute potty.
You mentioned this to me, and I'm fascinated by this
Yeah,
misophonia. And I'll be honest,
yeah,
I'd not really heard of it until you mentioned it, and I'm really interested in that because it's not
yeah.
so misophonia. Just kind of explain a little bit what that is.
So misophonia is being triggered by noises like chewing,
Hmm.
rustling packets, people drumming, just general human noises. And it's a big response with inside yourself where you get
Right.
angry,
Hmm.
um, and you can't really control it. And
Yeah.
it hurts me a lot of the time. The noises really hurt, and it just makes me angry, so angry.
Yeah, so you're literally being triggered by it, and but what is interesting is that it's not the volume of the noise. It's not like you've been shocked by a loud noise, and it's
No,
not like there's just that your brain is struggling to process lots of different noises at the same time. This is a whole separate thread of kind of noise sensitivity that I
yes,
wasn't aware of,
yes,
and there are a lot of kind of commonalities to the types of noises that misophoniacs, is that what is that
yes,
is it
yeah.
what people who have misophonia,
Yeah,
misophonians?
Misophonians. I
I
don't know. I
don't
don't
know.
know how they.
Misophoniacs, I'm going to keep that one in.
Yeah,
um but uh there are similar sounds that trigger, because I've heard of people getting really triggered by crisps being eaten.
crisps. chewing in general is, I mean, I can going to the cinema is really
Oh,
triggering for me.
popcorn.
Popcorn, people just chewing if they're chewing too loud. Apples, people chewing
Oh,
apples. I don't know why apples, but yeah, apples.
because it's a wet crunch, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, the
that kind of
words wet crunch are sort of upsetting to me from a linguistic point of view
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and, like, even to the extent of there was an advert recently, I can't remember who it was, but there was an advert recently where there was a brand of something that someone was chewing and on the advert, and that triggers people as well. I'm part of a group, and they
Right.
were like, "Oh my God, this advert this advert is just everything is just chewing, and
Oh,
I
no,
can't
because
watch
there's
it."
actually usually on a kind of
Yeah,
like a Dentifix advert or something like that, they'll bite
yeah.
an apple at the end,
Oh, yeah,
which I've never thought of until now, but that must be
yeah.
appalling.
Awful, just awful. It makes me feel a bit sick sometimes as well. I don't know if that's a kind of a common reaction, but I feel quite sick with the reaction as well, and I'm like, "Oh, no." It's like chalk, your nails on a chalkboard kind of
Yes,
feeling.
and it's a physical
Yeah,
reaction. It's not just a
yeah,
slight irritation. That's like so you're saying kind of the chalk down the
yeah,
blackboard, like I think a lot of neurotypicals would just go, yeah, that's a bit annoying, isn't it? Oh, that makes me feel a bit but this is beyond that because like you're saying, there's
yeah.
physical pain.
It just makes me so angry as well. Like I've had moments where I've like really like been cross,
Hmm.
um, and had to apologize later on and be like, I'm really sorry that that was me. That was just the way that I am, and try and think about ways to get around it to help because it's it affects everyday life. It's when people are chewing and meal times, like you have meals every and snacks and the
Yeah.
children eat and you know yeah, it's hard to navigate.
So you have misophonia. Do you, has that been identified in Max and Ben as well?
No, not so much at the moment. Ben, I kind of suspect maybe,
Okay.
because he does react in that kind of like to things.
Yeah.
And he mentioned the other day when I was chewing and eating something,
Yeah.
that he was irritating him. So I thought maybe that is the case. And that's the other thing with misophonia as well is that it's not just other people's noises; it can be your own as well.
Okay, that was my next question. I was fascinated
Yeah,
by that.
I
Yeah.
find my own chewing. And sometimes when I wear earplugs, I can hear my own breathing as well, and that really
Yeah, of
and
course.
talking and noise, and it just it irritates me as well. I just
Oh, I could see you physically bristling even just talking about it. That's interesting. And I presume that Matt doesn't have that
no,
because he can just turn his hearing aids down and
exactly. He can just turn his hearing aids down, and he can just just zone out of it all, and
okay.
like, what did you say?
It's interesting because I've never really considered whether any of my kids have misophonia. It's
Yeah,
possible that Jay does because he's particularly crabby at meal times, and
yeah,
typically he will tell us what's causing it. But if he's not aware of it yet, I mean, this is the
yeah,
wonderful thing about speaking to you, Lauren, is that you understand it and you can articulate it and you can tell me what's going on, which is
amazing.
amazing. And it's why I
Yeah,
love speaking to neurodivergent adults because they can really kind of zone in on what's going on for
yeah,
them, and it's really
and
fascinating.
help. Yeah,
Whereas my kids don't really have that sort of the ability to articulate it. So I'm wondering if it happens with Jay. I know it happens with Tam, but again,
yeah.
I think that that's only a recent thing that Tam has identified. As in, like 2 weeks ago, I was having me time with the kids, and Tam came in, and I was eating. And looked at me in horror. I was like, "What's going on?" And they went, I don't like your chewing noises." And it was the first time that had ever been mentioned. And I think
Yeah.
there is a case of now Tammy's unmasking that these things
Yes.
are becoming more and
So
more
started.
prevalent. I don't know if you had
Yes.
that had a similar thing.
Yes. Absolutely. Since I've started to come sort of realize more about myself
Mm,
since the diagnosis and things, I've started to unmask and be like, do you know what? I don't like things like that. I don't like this, or like jeans. I've decided I don't like wearing jeans
okay,
anymore. So I've changed to leggings, which is what I didn't used to like wearing jeans as a kid.
okay.
All these random things.
Oh, there's all kinds of things going on when you unmask, isn't there? One of the big differences that we kind of implemented in our house would involved quite a lot of upheaval, but basically just physically separating Jay from the noisemakers in the rest of the house. So he's up. So we've got a loft extension. So he's on the top floor on his own, like a loft dwelling troll, just grumpy, shouting down at the villagers below when he gets grumpy about the noise they're making. But to be fair, he was in the next room from Otto, and that was causing enormous arguments because Otto would just be making noise because he does.
Yeah.
That's what he does. I think with Otto, part of him making noise is sensory seeking. It's a way of like getting a stimulation. He's obviously, missing some kind of input, so he chooses to make noise or do repetitive, bouncing balls is a big thing as well. It's these repetitive things
Yeah.
that also coincidentally make a lot of noise. He's very heavy on his feet as well. There's something about that I think is rewarding to him, but obviously enormously triggering for Jay,
Yeah.
which is a big problem. There's another quite interesting thing with Otto, which I've mentioned in a previous episode. I think it was when I spoke to Hattie Ashdown about leaving the house. But sometimes Otto is dysregulated by a noise and he doesn't realize it. He doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And the example I gave before was that I was talking to Tam and he was getting really, really dysregulated. And he was like in tears and I couldn't understand what was going on. And he was just all over the place. And then I realized the extractor fan was on. And as soon as I turned the extractor fan on, he just calmed down straight away.
Wow.
And he didn't realize that. He wasn't aware that was going on. I kind of twigged and I went, oh, maybe it's that.
Yeah.
And then obviously that was just crowding his brain. It was overwhelming him.
Yeah.
And the way that
Yeah.
he responds to being overwhelmed
Yeah.
is that. So that's quite a challenge.
That's
Is sometimes trying to look for the clues.
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't like you say, noises that you might not even realize that are triggering you as well. I'm sure there's things like that with the boys and myself and Matt, that we all have noises that we don't even realize are triggering us, and they are, and and that's what makes you dysregulated, and you don't know why.
There is a perpetual paradox in our household, which I think needs to be brought to light, which is how on earth my children can be so sensitive to noise, yet so fucking noisy all the time. They are so noisy,
Yes.
perpetually. But if anyone else breathes or hiccups,
Yeah.
they are on it.
It's because they're in control of it, isn't
it's
it?
really strange.
Yeah, it's because they're in control of their.
Is that what it is?
They're in control of the volume and how much they do it and what sound. They're in control, so they can make as much noise as possible. But then it upsets the others, so it's hard to.
I would argue that Otto is not in control of volume. He has only one volume level, and that is 100%. Yeah, there's as I explained before, there's no dimmer switch on Otto.
Yeah.
He's just like full noise levels, and he's got no shades of no degrees of volume. It's just one volume, which I have to tell him, like, I'm right here. You can just talk. I'm right next to you. But he's super noisy. Again, as you're saying, triggering to Jay. In the house, I can cope with that. That's all right. I know, I know, at least I know where my kids are at all times because I can hear them in the house, wherever they are, whatever they're doing. There's no sneaking around, is there? My kids are never going to sneak out the house.
Yeah. When they go quiet, it's like,
yeah, that is, yeah.
Why are they quiet? They're not usually quiet.
Yeah, exactly. There's always this kind of this noise somewhere. In the house, as I say, that's okay. In public, I find it more problematic. I find it difficult when they are really noisy. If we're on a bus and they're just making so much noise, and people don't need that on a bus, they don't want to be on a bus. My kids are excited by it, obviously, because it's a bus. But yeah, that's sometimes quite difficult. And Otto can't rein it in. I can tell him, keep your voice down, but he thinks he is already.
Yes. Yeah.
This is him being tactful.
Yeah. And you get like looks and judgment as well, don't you, from other people? And you think, oh gosh, it's hard to kind of deal with that when you're out and about. Whereas at home, it's not so bad. But you do have. I mean, we have neighbours and things as well, so you have to be like mindful of that as well. And you think, oh gosh, what are they thinking as well? Yeah, but then you have to just get on with it as well.
I think our neighbours get it now. They're fine. They know what they're dealing with. That our kids are pretty, but they love them, and it's really nice.
Absolutely.
They're really
Yeah.
accepting of
Yeah.
that. I tend to find that people in libraries are a little bit less accepting of the noise they make
Like
because we love a library. Like libraries are very important to
yeah.
us. The kids love a library.
Yeah.
They like reading. They like being read to. So we go to libraries quite a lot, but. No, I mean, people literally go to the library for peace and quiet. That is not what they get when we rock up. You try and deal with it. I don't know. I just try and shepherd them into a corner and just keep them down. But not everyone gets it. And usually, kind of older people in libraries tend to not be as tolerant of
Yeah.
the noise.
Yeah. Yeah, older
Are you kind of a fellow disruptive family in public spaces, or are you a bit more restrained?
I think, I hate to say it, but I think the kids mask a bit when we're out in
Mm-hmm.
public, because they tend to be, it's when they get a bit dysregulated, and then they do become a bit louder.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it can be a bit sort of chaotic. But
Yeah.
I think they do mask in public, and trying to help them unmask in public is something that we're trying to help with as well.
Yeah, it's difficult though, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're like, you can't go, you can be as loud as you want in a library. People go, what are you doing? Shush, my child is unmasking.
Yeah, I think as well,
You can't.
it's hard when the boys went to a cinema, sort of home-ed cinema trip, and
Mm,
there was lots of other sort of neurodivergent children there being loud,
hmm.
and my kids were kind of going, but this is the cinema, it's the rules of sitting down, and
Yeah, of
you can't be
course.
loud. So they were very much a lot to do with rules and things of
Yeah.
cinemas,
Hmm.
and whereas the other kids were able to unmask, and so I'm like, we could do that if you want to, but then I'm like, I don't, it's hard to kind of.
Was it an autism friendly screening?
Yes, yes, it was,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, then crack on. Do
Yeah,
what you want,
home ed.
dudes.
Yeah,
Stand
yeah,
on the
exactly.
chairs.
But they were very much like cinema.
Yeah, no, I do. I
Yeah.
totally get it. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And then there's that, another of those paradoxes, isn't it? That
Yeah.
they don't want the rules to be broken. It's like that. There are no rules today,
Exactly.
Max. Crack on, dude.
Do it.
And I think you're right. I think it's the unpredictability that is the variable there. Is that if they don't expect it or they're not in control of it, whereas if they are, it's a whole different thing. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think I'm not alone in experiencing that in my house. Another interesting facet of my kids' sensitivity to noise is that sometimes it's really inconsistent. Sometimes I'll expect them to be freaked out by something and they're not. So my mum and dad, for reasons that they will be able to explain but I can't, have a cat scarer in there outside their house, right? It's not like a scarecrow and it's not like a dog. Do you know what a cat scarer is?
Yeah. They do dog ones as well. I think.
Right.
I think my granny had one actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
a long time ago. Yeah.
for whatever reason, my dad,
Yeah.
he's not a fan of cats. Anyway, my parents have a cat scarer, which basically, if you don't know any of the listeners, it emits a really high pitched sound that for some reason freaks cats out. So cats are like, I'm not going to piss on that garden because it's a really loud noise, right? My dad does not want cats in his garden, so has this cat scarer. So we turn up the first day that he'd installed it. We turned up, didn't know it was there. I opened the car door. Now, the thing to kind of understand is that it's at a pitch that I can't detect, really. Like the adults can't
I can
detect.
hear
It's only
them.
really detectable by you can, because you can hear a mosquito blinking in the next room
Yeah,
because you have
pretty much.
incredible hearing.
Amazing hearing.
but but my kids could hear it and I couldn't. So we get out the car and they're instantly like hands over their ears, like freaking out. And I'm like, what's because I can't
What's
hear
the
it. So I'm
problem?
like, what's going on? Are you being attacked by bees? What's what's going on? And they kind of like rang the doorbell and then got in the house and ran inside. And then we worked out what it was. It was the cat scarer. So now every time we go to my parents, they like Jay freaks out and has to get in the house and he hates it. But Otto is weirdly drawn to it now. Like I found him the other day. He'd let himself out the front door into the front garden and he's kneeling in front of the cat scarer, setting it off and giggling. And it's just like, what? I don't. Again, he's sensory seeking, isn't it? It
Yes,
scratches
seeking. Yeah,
some kind of
seeking
itch in
what's the
him.
noise. Yeah, that's interesting.
It
That's
was.
really
It
interesting.
was
I
not.
hate the noise. I hate
Can you? You can
the
hear
noise.
it. Well,
Oh, I can hear it. Yeah, and Max can hear it. Ben can't, and Matt can't. And yeah, but I'm like, oh no,
yeah, I can imagine.
goes right through
So
you.
you're never
Max,
going to end up in my parents' lawn, then.
yeah,
Good to know. Good to know.
yeah,
Um, there was another kind of one that happened yesterday. Actually, it was only yesterday, and I was walking the kids to school, and we're waiting to cross the road to go to school, and I saw in the distance a street sweeper, and they're really noisy.
they are. Yeah,
And I saw it approaching, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going about to record an episode on noise. Let's see how this pans out." Which is possibly cruel, I don't know, but I was interested in observing it, so I didn't mention it, and I saw it coming down the road, and none of the kids had noticed it, and it got nearer and nearer and louder, and Otto immediately put his hands over his ears and he couldn't deal with it. India did the same. I was like, oh, okay, there's another sign of neurodivergency there. She did exactly the same thing, but
yeah.
Jay didn't do it. And the reason that Jay didn't do it is because he was unleashing this incredible tirade of special interests at me. he was he was
Yeah.
he was info bombing me about a video game that he's really into at the moment, and he didn't even notice it because he was so hyper focused on what he was talking about. He was just info dumping, which at least we know now that info dumping trumps sensitivity to noise in the hierarchy. that
Helpful.
that is that's the thing that he's going to hyper regulate with, and it's going to sort
Yeah,
of drown everything else out. It's really difficult for me to see my kids being dysregulated by noise. It's a really hard thing because it's such a visceral reaction to something. And I think as a parent, we do everything we can. As a parent of neurodivergent kids in particular, we do everything we can to control the variables that we can, to smooth things over. I can't control other people's noise. I can't
no,
control those variables. And it's really hard to see that happen.
it is. It's really hard.
Do you have that sort of, because I mean you're feeling the same sort of reaction to excessive noise as well, I guess, so
Yes.
every man for themselves.
Yeah, well, it's kind of I have to think of them first and
Yeah, of
then think of
course.
me,
Yeah.
and just kind of go, right, okay, what do they need? Do they need ear defenders? Do they need
Mm.
to remove themselves from the situation? What do we need? What do we all need right now? What I'm kind of like thinking in my head, right, okay, Max needs this, Ben needs this, Matt needs this, I need this, Sam needs that,
God, it's like competing needs as well sometimes.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because not everyone, I think, is aware of what to do in these situations, and particularly if they don't know our kids and they're not sure of kind of how to respond. And I remember once seeing some footage. So when your kids were at school, did you kind of see video footage of them in reception or whatever, or of them just in the classroom and going, oh, here's how they're
yeah,
getting on. It's never a fun watch with my lot because it's always like, oh, here is the class doing a thing, and oh, there's Otto in the corner doing something completely different, or
yeah,
there's Jay headbutting a door. But there
yeah.
was this one that they sent in, and it was like they were rehearsing in a school hall for I think it was a Christmas Carol concert. And so you pan around all these children who are singing, Christmas songs, and they're all really enthusiastic and they're having a great time. And then in the middle of them is Otto with his hands over his ears, rocking backwards and forwards. It's like, what?
Yes.
Why aren't you doing something?
Doing
Like,
something
it
to
was
help.
heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely.
because he hasn't got the kind of articulation to understand at that age what he needed
Yeah,
to say, I want to be out out the room. They
I
kind of,
can't cope with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
they knew he was autistic, but they don't think they knew what to do with it. Now, like, that school have been brilliant with all of our kids, so it's not, for whatever reason, I think it was just like, this is the only time we get all the kids together to
Yeah.
rehearse this big thing. That takes priority. But Otto is just really freaking out, and I think it's not only the echoey hall, which I think had a part to play, but also
Yeah.
the kids singing. It wasn't great, you know.
No. It never is, is it?
It was a bit out of tune. I'm sure that played a part in it as well. So he was really dysregulated, and it was really heartbreaking to see. And I think,
Yeah.
whenever we kind of see that that's going to happen now, especially something that happens in a hall, we're just like, no, he doesn't need to take part in that.
Yeah,
Um,
we're moving from it. Yeah.
and they're pretty good about that now. But I think in particular stuff in the hall is like, no, it's too much for him.
Yeah. Too much
Um,
fun.
the other example I had was when I went to Bristol with Jay to go and visit a friend of mine and his son, who Jay's really friendly with. And we went for a walk in Bristol, and it was Christmas time. And then on the horizon, I saw Santa on a motorbike, right? And so Santa came to us on a motorbike, and Jay was like, "Oh, what's that?" Okay, well, we watched it, and then there were 2 Santas on a motorbike, and then 3, and then like a whole legion of. It's like a charity thing they do every year, apparently. That, like, they just have thousands. It felt like thousands of Santas on motorbikes driving through Bristol. So initially it was quite funny. We're like, "Oh, this is a thing," and then we're kind of waving because they stop because you can't cross the road because there's a
Oh,
cavalcade of
yeah.
Santas on motorbikes. So you have to wait, so we start walking along the road, and they're basically following us for ages. And Jay is getting more and more dysregulated, and there's nowhere we can go. We're
Yeah.
in the street, and he's getting really dysregulated. And at one point, we end up under a bridge, and they're stuck at traffic lights. And I'm not even exaggerating, there's at least 100 Santas on motorbikes revving their engines, because you know what motorbikes do that at.
Yes,
And
they do.
Jay's
Yeah.
absolutely furious about this. He's got his hands over his ears and he's shaking. And it's unpleasant for me as well. And I'm just sort of holding him and putting my hands over his ears as well to try and kind of help him through this. And eventually they drove off and it calmed down. And he was really grumpy. And he went, "You know what? There is such a thing as being too festive." It's like, you are absolutely right, Jay. Yes, you are 100% correct.
Absolutely. Gosh, yeah. It's so hard, isn't it, as a parent, to watch your child go through that and then just be like, I'm trapped here too. I can't
I mean,
get out of it. Yeah.
there's no way we woke up that morning anticipating that would happen.
No.
You can't prepare for this kind of thing, can
No,
you?
absolutely not. I mean, you can take your ear defenders with you, but other than that, like even if sometimes you forget your ear defenders and things happen, and it's or you leave them in the car or something like that, and it
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, because
yeah.
ear defenders is a thing, but it is a good way to regulate. Do yours wear ear defenders?
They Ben does, Max doesn't. He wears like his headphones for like his tablet because he's at that age where it's like it's not cool to wear them as well, and he
Right.
feels a bit
Yeah.
self-conscious.
Yeah.
And I don't wear them either.
Okay.
I've tried like loop earplugs, but I struggle. My ear canals are really small.
Okay.
And I can't find ones that fit that are super small.
Have you tried even the children's ones?
Yeah, and
My
they
God.
still won't go in very well. And so if anyone knows anything, let me know because I need help. But yeah, I can't try those ones. And Max has tried those a few times, and he likes those. But
Okay, that's good.
sometimes doesn't like the sensory feeling of having something in his ear
Yeah,
as well.
that's it. That's with
So
Jay. So if
yeah,
anyone sort of listening hasn't heard of the loop ear, I mean, the other brands are available as well, but they're sort of little in ear. They don't completely block the ears. There's a little smaller hole in there, and to filter. I don't quite know how they work, but they filter the more unpleasant aspects of the noise in and out. And I've heard that they do work for some people, but Jay had big issues with him just feeling uncomfortable. So I think the sensory feeling overrode the desire for the kind of noise cancellation. So that was a bit of a problem with him. Tam has just started trying them. And again, I think has more issues with the sensory side of things, but is willing to give them a go. Noise cancelling headphones is probably the most successful in our household. I think Jay is on board with noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah, I like. I've got a pair here that are super like squishy, and they squish my ears, and I feel really
Oh, it's a
safe when I wear
sensory
them.
thing as well. Yeah, that's the thing,
Yeah,
isn't
I
it?
really like it. I feel cozy with them. But the only issue I have is obviously being a mum. I need to be able to listen out for my children, so I can't do it all the time. I have
Yeah.
to make sure that Matt's handy to and I'm like, I need to regulate, I need to wear them, because otherwise, I can't. If it was like the earplugs where they just kind of filter the
Mm-hmm.
noise, it's okay. But ear defenders, cancelling noise ones that
Yes, so
make
the
it
noise cancelling ones, again, just to
harder.
kind of explain to people listening, that it's not just that things are turned up loud in them and then they cancel all the other noise out. There's as I understand it, there's a kind of a frequency that it emits,
Yeah,
right? That sort
I
of,
think so.
again,
I'm not very
some
technical,
magic
but
pixies are living in the headphones, and they blow their pixie bugles and they block out. I don't know the science, I'll be honest.
I have no idea. It works. That's all I know.
Yeah, that you can turn the noise cancelling bit on and off. They're headphones, like
Yeah.
as headphones are, but you can also kind of activate the noise cancelling feature. And again, it really works for Jay, and he really likes
Yeah.
that. So not only is he sort of removed from the rest of the house on a different floor, but he's got his noise cancelling headphones in as well. And I think that's definitely helped. It was really interesting that how you described the feeling when you wear them. Again, this is just really good that you could articulate this, because my kids can't. But you're saying that you just feel safe.
Pressure. I feel safe, the pressure, and it just
There's a
calms me.
sensory aspect
Yeah,
as
sensory
well.
element of pushing. It pushes like not like super tight, but it
Mm-hmm.
pushes lightly on my head, and it feels like the softness of the padding. It's just super soft as well. And I just feel safe, and I wrap myself up in something fluffy, and I feel perfect again.
Nice. And that's how you regulate. Okay, everyone
And that's
does
how I
what they need to.
regulate. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting.
yeah,
If you let us know the brand of those, I'll put them on the show notes, just in case anyone else
yeah.
wants to
I
kind of
don't
have a
know.
look at what they are,
They're
because they
music ones, so I don't know. Yeah, I can let you know
right, but
next
they
time.
do that kind of thing. I mean, Jay's got some as well, and I can put that brand on there. But
Yeah,
there are loads of noise cancelling ones of various different costs. But I think that point of feeling safe and sort of just blocking out some of the
mm,
dysregulation is really important. I think for a lot of reasons. I think for that same reason, a lot of neurodivergents kind of walk around with hoods up as well. It's just that,
they do. They
just kind of
do. My husband
enclosing
does
it.
that. Yeah, my husband does it. Matt does that. He puts his hood up,
Mm.
and I know that's kind of a signal to me, like, okay, I need to just leave him be for a bit because he's got his hood up,
Hmm.
and I kind of go back off a little bit. Yeah, and the other thing I've found as well is underwater. Both
Oh,
the boys absolutely love being, and I do as well, love being underwater. Particularly Ben. Ben really, he just says it calms him
that's
because
so interesting.
it gets rid of all the noise, which is
Yes,
wonderful.
which makes perfect
If you can
sense.
go underwater, if you feel comfortable going underwater, it's one. I quite like it now. Yeah, going
Yeah,
underwater.
I mean, like, because Jay and Otto are both. I mean, Jay in particular. I mean, I've been really concerned. I thought he drowned before. He was there because he was there for ages.
Yeah,
Or sometimes what he does is sort of floats on top of the water with his arms out
yeah,
and his head
yeah,
in, and it does look like he's dead. It's
yeah,
really alarming. Because he's relaxed as well. Because
yeah,
normally he's moving around, right? And he's not moving for
yeah,
a change.
yeah,
Because he's calm. That's really interesting, and I think that must be it, right?
yeah.
He just
It
like
just removes the sound, and it's that kind of calm. You're underwater. It's serene under there, and then the just not hearing, everything's all muffled. It's
yeah,
bliss, isn't it? Really, just yeah. You're not hearing lights. You're not hearing all the annoying noises. It's just calm
just that calm
underwater.
noise, and that's I'm sure you could probably get the soundtrack of that kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Because that was one as babies, white noise is a really good,
Yeah.
as you'll know with baby Sam, right? White noise is a really calming thing, and I think the reasoning is that it sort of takes them back to the womb, right? It not literally, obviously, but it calms them down because it's reminiscent of what the sounds in the womb, and so you got
Yes.
white noise and also brown noise. So brown noise
Yeah.
is kind of just like machinery, but
Yeah.
actually that does really work on my kids.
Yeah. There's other noises as well. I think there's pink noise and
I
there's
don't know
there's
what pink
something
noise.
else.
What's pink noise?
I don't know. I think it's like a lighter white noise, I think.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure. ASMR as well. People like ASMR to kind of like it's soft, kind of quiet,
Yes.
whispering.
Yes.
Um, that
That
triggers my misophonia like mad.
I was
But
gonna. I was just thinking that must be a nightmare for you. Though, like,
yeah, I hate it.
um,
Yeah,
but if you like Spotify has loads of that kind of
yeah,
like loads of
too.
white noise, brown noise kind of things. And my
Yeah.
kids, it does help them sometimes when they can't get to sleep. Or I remember the best night's sleep my kids ever had was when we were on a ferry overnight, because the sound of the ferry, like you've got
Yeah,
the thrum of the ferry as you're kind of going through the water, and they were
yeah,
just like out like a light. It was incredible. It was
yeah.
incredible.
Wow.
So again, it's like part of that, just
Yeah,
feeling safe and feeling regulated. I don't know. It's a really interesting phenomenon that, it didn't
it
really
is.
work on me. One of the interesting things is I think because our house is neurodivergent, we are noisier than neurotypical houses, like by far. It's because of the neurodivergency at play in our house that we're so noisy, which is in turn triggering. So this is just like this never-ending cycle of noise and dysregulation, and more dysregulation, and then sleep, and then we wake up and we go through it all again. Um, I mean, I've had the pleasure of waking up in neurotypical households. Have you ever had that without my family there? So if I have to stay in London, I go and stay with my mate, and they're all neurotypicals. And my God, it's incredible. It's such a different quality of
Yeah,
noise. It's genuinely shocking. Like look, waking up and not hearing just the background of chaos.
that's
It's
really
like
interesting. Yeah,
simmering chaos. Something is always happening in our house. There's
yeah, same.
always some kind of noise.
Yeah,
And it's
same.
really, really interesting waking up in a household where that isn't actually a thing. It's like a holiday for my ears.
Yeah, I bet.
It's lovely. And they do have kids. It's not like they don't have kids. They
Yeah,
have
yeah,
kids, but they can settle. I think my kids
true.
can't settle, and I think
Yeah,
that's the ADHD at play. They're
yes.
they're restless. They're constantly fidgeting or kind of moving or transitioning from one activity to the next. Or there's always something going on.
The brain's on the
Um,
go
yeah,
all the
constantly. There's
time.
like, and even when TV's on,
Yeah.
is that the same in your house? When there's a
Yes.
TV on, it's still.
TV, talking, singing, dancing, singing, like, yeah, just baby
But they're
crying.
happy noises, right? Those are happy noises. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what I'm saying. They're
absolutely.
not unpleasant noises
No,
at all.
no, they're not unhappy. They're very, very happy noises and very, like, excited noises or
Yeah.
content noises, but they're noises.
I guess it's a bit like living in the center of town and then
Yeah.
spending a night in the countryside.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I
This
can't hear the sound of broken glass or something. Oh, it's a very different quality of sound. And you kind of you miss it when it's not there.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird because you get
Yeah.
used to it, right? And even when like Jay is reading, he'll be kicking the wall, and I'm like, I'm trying to work in the next room, and he'll be kicking the wall, like, dude, you're reading. This is your calm time. This is your quiet time. No,
No.
it's just one of them things, isn't it?
It's not all rubbish.
Okay, so I think we've looked at some of the issues surrounding how neurodivergent households handle noise. There are positives to this, of course. As I was saying, there's that kind of the constant happy chaos in our house, which I do like genuinely.
Yeah.
When Jay is happy, I hear him humming. You can tell, you can hear him, and it's a really nice, pleasant
Nice
sound. And
feeling.
there's always something going on in our house, so that's that's a positive thing, I think. Um, That's it. That's all I got for the positives from my point of view. I'm trying. Not all of these things have like major positives because it's you're constantly on edge and stuff. But I guess from your point of view as well, your hearing is a gift, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think myself lucky as a parent. Whether
Mm.
it's lucky, I don't know, but yeah, I take it that at night time in particular, I can tell when their breathing changes or they're not very
Wow.
well,
What in
or
the next room?
well, a lot of time we co-sleep.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so sometimes it's they're next to me, or sometimes they are in their own room, but other times they're next to me. If they're particularly if they're not very well, and yeah, like the other night, Ben was in bed with me, and his breathing changed, and I knew straight away that he was going to be sick before he did. I sat up, grabbed a bowl, and yeah, he was sick.
That is genuine
Yeah,
superpower.
I was
That
like,
is
wow.
that is top mumming.
Yeah,
100%. That is amazing.
just and then like with obviously with baby Sam, like I can hear him moving around in the night and in his little cot and stuff, and making sure that he's okay as well. And yeah, it's amazing, really. It's
God, that's
yeah.
incredible. Do you get any sleep yourself? Or are you just constantly like on the prowl for checking out?
Since I've become a parent, no.
Yeah, Sam is responsible for most of that, I'm guessing,
Yes,
right?
at the
Yeah,
moment, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So misophonia has its positives as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah, it does. Yeah, I think so. In that regard, it does. I'm able to sense what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, you're saying like you can hear electricity, right? Which is
Yeah,
like, so can you sense a power
yeah.
cut before it happens?
No, I wish I could.
Oh, that'd be pretty
But
cool.
no, I have like sensed in the past, like when a charger isn't right,
Right.
um, and yeah, and it's gonna be dodgy. And I caught one of Max's chargers for his tablet that it was gonna blow.
Hmm.
I caught it before it did,
That's
and yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So I'm quite pleased about that, obviously.
Are you considering a career in health and safety? Because you'd be a gift. You could just walk around going, "Oh, that plug's gone to
That's
shit.
broken.
That light bulb's about to blow. You want to fix that?"
Oh, I should do it. I should do it.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're going to look at neurodiversity champions now as well. So again, we always like to kind of give a shout out to anyone, any company, organization, or just another human who is a champion of neurodiversity. Have you got anyone you want to mention?
Well, I find the Facebook group, the UK Misophonia Facebook group,
Hmm.
really, really useful, because you can talk to people who are feeling the same as you,
Yeah, of course.
um, talk about your children as well, and see if they've got similar issues to you.
Hmm.
And it's really, really supportive and fabulous.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
great. Facebook groups are really good for that kind of thing, aren't
really
they?
good.
Like,
Yeah,
they've been really important to me, in particular. I'll put a link in
yeah, I
the
can send it you.
in the show
Yeah,
notes. That'd be good because yeah, that sounds absolutely ideal. My neurodiversity champion this week is the BBC. I mentioned the BBC a couple of weeks ago, actually, with the journalist. Well, it's actually the journalist himself, Nick Ransom. But the BBC had a thing called The Assembly. Did you see it, or have you read
I
about it? Or
haven't seen it yet, but I want to watch it. I have heard it's good. Is
It
it
was
good?
wonderful. It was so nice. So if you haven't heard about the assembly, it's a one-off, which basically took famous actor Michael Sheen and put him in front of a what I'm going to describe as a gaggle of neurodivergents, basically. Like it's a room full of neurodivergent people who wanted to ask him questions, to interview him. And it was it was wonderful. Like firstly, Michael Sheen was incredible. He was so open and so honest and so kind of understanding, that it was, he did himself an enormous amount of credit. Like he was great. So that was really nice. And he was, but just the way it was done, it was so conversational and so warm. And like it was really nice to see, because obviously you see people being interviewed and it's very kind of, it's very formulaic. I'm asking you a question. I'm going to stop while you answer, and then ask you another question. And you stop, but all of a sudden there's this group of people, and one person will ask a question, and someone else will chip in support of that, and then he'll answer. And what the lovely thing was, you hear their responses. Because obviously, if a journalist is interviewing someone and they kind of give a response, they keep quiet because you want to hear the response. But these guys were laughing. They were going, yeah, oh, that's a great. And, they were responding in real time. And it was so lovely to see. It was so sort of, it was so novel to see that kind of thing, that it was great. And some of the questions were very direct, like a journalist would never ask. So one of the questions, for a spoiler, was, how do you feel about your partner being just 5 years older than your daughter? Exactly. Right. And he was just like, I am being asked this question, and now I have to answer it. And it was like, and again, the way he did it was wonderful. It was beautiful. But again, there was none of that, I can't ask this question. It's like, no, I want to know the answer to this question. And it wasn't phrases so like, I'm going to catch you out. It's just, oh, I'm interested in the answer to this question. It was wonderful. And then again, I'm banging on about it a bit too much, but it was one of the things they did. There was one guy that got up, and he really struggled to get the question out. So he got this question in his head, and he really got kind of stuck in his own head. And he was, and what they did was they showed that, all of it. They didn't edit it out. They didn't kind of trim it. They showed him going through this process of battling with this question that he wanted to get out, and sort of and hearing other people encouraging him and saying, you can do it, and sort of like rubbing him on the back. And it was so supportive. And then he got the question out. But it was like as a window into neurodivergence, which are very often not shown on TV. It was wonderful, I think. And so I really loved it. I thought the BBC did a great job. And I want to put that gaggle of neurodivergence in front of politicians. That would be wonderful. I want to see the politicians really sweat and not be allowed to get away with an answer.
Let's encourage that.
Tiny epic wins.
Okay, tiny epic wins now. So these are the things where which in a neurotypical household would be barely worth a mention, but in our households they're epic wins. Have you got any tiny epic wins for us, Lauren?
I have. So Max, as a young little boy, would really struggle with haircuts, and he would find them really sensory and overstimulating.
Yeah, of course.
And it would be awful to take him for a haircut. There'd be times I'd be trying to cut his hair while he's asleep, and it would just look awful. And
the shit we have to do.
Yeah, it would be horrendous. And yeah, it would just be horrible. And he would scream throughout the whole process, and the poor hairdresser would be traumatized as well. And it would just not be good for anyone.
Yeah.
Fast forward to him being 11, and we found someone recently who has been amazing with him with haircut. He was able to wear his fidgety t-shirt as well.
Oh, so good, nice.
In that, and he was relaxed, and he turned to me and he said, "Mummy, I absolutely love haircuts."
Oh my God, that's huge.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, the lady was brilliant.
What did she do?
She just talked to him and fine with the comb is if you pull the comb and then gently fold it backwards a bit, it doesn't pull on the scalp as much.
Yes.
So then she cuts the hair and also uses the hairdryer, which could be overstimulating for some people. But you can use the hairdryer to blow away the hair, because the hair that's been cut is sensory as well.
Yeah.
And that just seemed to work.
Does she does she specialise in doing cuts for neurodivergence, or she's just lucked
she just
out?
got it when we explained to her, and Max just clicked with her. He was able to talk about his hyperfocuses and everything with her, and talk about comfort as well, and
wow,
go into great detail about that. And she loved it and was amazed.
Fantastic.
So it's brilliant. Yeah.
Do you want to give him a shout out?
Yeah, it's bloke in Alistry.
If you give me a link, then
I will.
There might be someone else going, well, I've been struggling with the same thing. I'm going to drive all
Yeah,
the way there.
all the way there. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Okay. I've got a tiny epic win, which is again related to noise. This happened last week. So Otto is really into football. He's very into football. It's like a special interest of his at the moment. And his school had a visit from a Premier League footballer. So we're in Brighton, and Brighton player Billy Gilmore came to visit his school. Now, ordinarily, Otto would be well on board with that. He'd be really excited to kind of see him. But he knew that event would be too much for him. It was in the hall, right? And we've already talked about him kind of
Yeah.
overstimulating in the hall. It was the whole class thing. There was going to be people cheering and shouting and being excited and probably interviewing him, and there would be like amplification that would echo. And he understood that and said, I don't want to do that. I want to stay in the classroom. Which
Bless
for
him.
him to be
Yeah.
aware, to be self-aware of that is a huge leap forward, I think.
Massive. Yeah.
Because he normally he would go and be overstimulated and be super dysregulated and have a bad time. So the fact that he can advocate for himself, I think,
Absolutely.
for
Massive
me
deal.
is a huge win. So I'm going to take that one.
What the flip?
Okay, we got some what the flip moments now. I mean, I've always got plenty of these because Jay is generally an absolute fountain of nonsense. Have you got any what the flip moments for us?
I couldn't think of any.
Okay, that's fine. I've got you covered. That's okay. So one of them happened. Ken, these are moments where your child will say or do something that you're just like, I have no tools in my toolbox to deal with this. I don't know what I can do. And we were talking about his uncles, because he tends to just not really pay attention to anyone. So, do you know who your uncles are? And I was half expecting to say no, I have no idea. And he went, yeah, I hate your brothers. I was like, why do you hate them? He went, they don't use foot powder. I'm just like, I mean, I don't think you know that. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Firstly, why foot powder is important to him, and their refusal
Yeah.
to use it is triggering for him. There's too many questions. I just had to just sort of fine. I'm just going to write this down and move on. So that was it. That was that one. The other one was he's going to be doing his SATs soon, which is that's the thing. He doesn't seem to be taking it that seriously, so I'm fine. He's not getting stressed out by it, so I'll kind of take that. But we do have to sort of do a bit of a nod to training him up for the SATs. Sorry, I did a burp then, and I think that probably came out.
That's all right. It's okay.
Your misophonia must have gone absolutely haywire then. I'm terribly sorry, Lauren.
It would have been worse if I'd wearing my headphones,
true.
but it's all right. It's okay. I didn't hear it.
So anyway, we've got these homework books that he can, because he's on a reduced timetable at school. So when he comes back from school, we kind of leave stuff out for him to do so he can practice doing his SATs. And I left them out for him, and he came in to see me after school. And I was like, I left the books downstairs. Did you do them? And he went, yeah, I just did them. I said, well done. Did you smash it? And he went, yeah, I smashed it to bits. Then I put the bits in a shredder. Then I ate them, so there's no evidence left behind. And again, he didn't even pause for that. It was just like straight out with it.
Straight out.
Like, okay.
Brilliant.
It's like, does that mean you haven't done it? I don't. Fine.
I don't know.
I don't know. And the other what the flip moment this week was when he sort of sighed and he went, I've embraced the fact that I'm smarter than most adults. Like, just the phrasing of that. I've embraced it. Like he's resigned to just this lofty intellectual perch on which he's placed himself. And I mean, I've met a lot of adults to whom he is probably smarter than, but I wouldn't say most adults. I think that's a bit much. And I didn't even get into whether he thinks he's smarter than me, because I think we all know the answer to that. Yeah, so they're my what the flip moments. So that brings us to the end of this particular episode of Neuroshambles. firstly, I'm just going to say a huge thank you to you, Lauren. Thank you so much for coming on and talking
Thank you for having me.
about your noise-riddled household. Just a quick shout out to Comfort Clothing, which is Max's. Well, it's your clothing brand to kind of to promote Max's fidgety. Is it fidgety or fidget tea?
Fidgety.
Okay, so again, I'll put the link in there. We already linked to it in the struggles with clothing episode, but we'll do it again because it's excellent. I will just say thank you to the audience and remind you of the socials. We're on Reddit. Actually, I'm not going to be on Reddit for very much longer because literally no one's joined, and I've been doing it for months. So this is the last shout out. If no one joins Reddit in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to bin it because I can't deal with the rejection. But Instagram is alive and kicking. The Facebook, that's an absolute treat. And Threads is ticking along nicely as well. So you can join them on there as well. If you've got anything you want to kind of feedback about the show, it's always genuinely a pleasure to hear from you. So feel free to email me at hello@neuroshambles.com. Apart from that, all I can say is have a nice life.